everybody. I'm Tal. Um, and disclaimer is that this is we do not recognize religious, sexual, political, or anything that might be charged, might cause a controversial discussion, and that anything in that will not be recognized and will not be addressed. And if it is, then you will be removed. With that being said, I was out, or not out, but there was a couple of discussions that have come up this week that have caused me to think about things in a different way. I was going to do something on perception and perspective, but however, it's all got to start with our attitude. And how do we welcome things that may change our lives? Value, privilege, all of that. And attitude is what makes us willing and want and able. Because if we don't have the attitude to get into the mindset, none of that other stuff is going to matter. And it's basically kind of a waste of time until that changes with our attitude. And from there, once that happens, then that other falls into place. Whether we apply, when we do apply it, it can make the difference. Because I look at it like this, that athletes that succeed, their attitude is to succeed. Their attitude is to do what they need to do to succeed. And so they do very well. And then their lives afterwards prosper. And they influence others. And the same thing with people in the military, that in the forces, in the special teams ops, that in order for those teams to work together, they have to have the attitude and mindset that we have to work together in order to come out of this alive. And we have to work together. And our differences don't matter. It's what we do here and how we work together is what makes the difference, whether we come out alive or not, or we carry somebody home in a bag or not. And watching and hearing people talk about this stuff caused me to think from perspective and perception. It starts with the attitude beforehand. And that's what allows us to open the door. And that's what allows us to change. Because we can't change, or we are unwilling to change, if we don't start out and adjust that attitude. And so from there, I'd like to hear thoughts from people that are here today. And either you speak up or I'll pick somebody. So, Julie, what's your thought?
I don't think I have any other thoughts other than what was already expressed.
Mm-hmm.
Which what I said earlier was attitude being our relationship with our perception.
Okay. So how would our perception and perspective be affected by our attitude other than what I said?
Isn't what we say and how we say things dependent on our perception, and our attitude can change that? How we say it, how we express it.
Okay. So how would that work in your own life?
It would depend on the situation.
Okay. Just randomly pick one arbitrarily.
Well,
Yeah. Now let's think about that for a moment. Miles, what's your take on this?
It's a key piece. Orientation of mind establishes what we can perceive. We perceive so much more than we're able to cognitively process. So we see all the colors, we see all the shapes. Just taking a look at the visual spectrum, we see all the colors and all the shapes, but we can only see in any way that we can understand what we're focusing on. So if we're focused on something that's directly in front of us, I can focus on a person's face. I can focus on their expression. I can focus on the color of their eyes. I can focus on the detail of their clothing. Any one of these is going to change how much I can absorb in my immediate surrounding. So this is a shaping of focus based on what I'm trying to perceive or what I'm trying to engage with. This happens even more distinctly when we have a positive can do or a negative can't do attitude toward any activity. So, as an example, if I am looking for ways to escape responsibility because I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling as though it's unfair or I'm being put upon, then the only things I'm going to be able to perceive are avenues of escape. However, if I can change that perspective over to a perspective which I use from my martial arts background, which is I don't want to defend, I want to attack in such a way as I don't get hit. Meaning that I want to find a way to engage positively and constructively and creatively with a circumstance or with a situation where the thing that I'm worried about or the thing that I'm concerned about isn't going to affect me, or it can be sidestepped, or it can be directly engaged while I'm focused on creating this other thing. Having that attitude means that it's very rare that I find myself in a position where I'm taking the role of the subject of attack or the victim, whatnot. This isn't to say that there aren't circumstances where you absolutely have an aggressor and a victim. That's absolutely a reality. But there are times when because we walk in with a particular mindset, we're looking for the opportunity to be attacked, even if it's just to prevent being attacked, versus the opportunity to go and contribute or to go and create or to go and engage or to go and build. And this is something that I see quite often. And I think that's where that mindset really dials in, as it filters what we can perceive. Your mindset filters what you're able to see and hear and feel. If you're looking for opportunity, you will see opportunity everywhere. If you're looking for limitations, you will see limitations everywhere. If you're looking for challenges, you will find challenges everywhere. If you're looking for joy, you will find joy everywhere. If you're looking for things to be appreciative of, practicing being appreciative of things is a good way to practice this shift of mindset. Just practice being appreciative makes you more appreciative, and it makes you see the world in a more appreciative way, just because it becomes the focus.
You know, that's one of those things that I think's easy to overlook. It's those little simple things in there that if we have that mindset of a very limited perspective with the attitude going in, then we're going to limit those opportunities and those chances. And that's going to also restrict how well we accept challenges or how well we don't accept challenges. And that's important to remember, is how willing and what lengths am I willing to go? And if I'm willing to go that extra mile, or at least give it my best and commit to that, that makes all the other less of a mountain to climb. Even though it's a big mountain, if we accept that reality and what
If
it
you're
actually,
looking at the mountain you're climbing as the pain from the effort of climbing a mountain, then climbing that mountain will be very difficult. If you're looking at the perspective of climbing the mountain as achieving some great cause or some great purpose, then the pain, the physical pain of climbing the mountain will actually be less, because you won't be paying attention to it. You won't be focusing on it. You'll be focusing on the achievement. And so the notion of, I like the mountain climbing metaphor, the notion of what you notice about your experience of climbing a mountain is going to be very closely affiliated to what you're focusing on as you're climbing. Are you focusing on progress, or are you focusing on fatigue? In one case, you'll see the progress that you're achieving, and in the other, you'll see the pain that process has caused through the fatigue, through the soreness. And the truth is, there is no more pain one way or the other, and there's no more progress one way or the other. It's just, in one case, you'll be focusing in the progress, in the other, you'll be focusing on the pain, and you get your choice. You get to choose which you want to focus on. And
you know,
big difference in that mission, in that climbing of that mountain.
you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, because when I go out and I'm riding with one of my riding buddies, when we go mountain bike, that we'll go, man, my legs really hate me today. They're already complaining, right? And so we end up letting ourselves, or at least I do, I'll let myself get wrapped up in that misery of, I'm already starting to suffer, right? Because one of the adages of mountain biking, or anything that's going to really physically push you, is there is an amount of suffering involved. Okay. And what you were saying there is, we get caught up in the mindset of, nothing about this is comfortable. And the forgetting about the successes that we gain from that mile, half mile, get minimized. And when we acknowledge, well, I've already come this far, why can't I go further? If I'm understanding what you're saying, is on that, I'm on that ballpark. So the climbing the mountain is, though that's grueling, but the guys that end up free climbing because of that attitude of, I can and I will, then that makes the success. So, but it does change our perception. It does change our perspectives. in that aspect. Because we've all, or at least a lot of people, have gone through times in their lives when they ask, how am I going to get through this? This just genuinely sucks. And then when they get through it and they've gone through it and they have experienced it, that when something else happens that may be just as bad, that I've already gone through this, so I am prepared. And it's not as bad as it could have been or it has been. So it's not, so that difficulty isn't there that once was. Because you know you can get through it. You know you can do it. It might suck as much, but how we look at it, of going, you know what? I've been through worse. This isn't as bad. And that's where that attitude comes in of like, you know what? This is going to be okay. I'm going to come out on this. And that makes the difference of where we end up. Whether we land on our feet, whether we land on our face, whether we land skinned and banged up, but you still got through it. And you can still get back up. And you still walk. And I'm glad now that I kind of changed the where it starts, what starts it, to when you're in process. Because we can't be in process if we haven't started, if we haven't acknowledged that. And what is it? And so, thank you, Miles. Thank you. So, Julie, what do you have now?
I have two thoughts.
Okay.
One, when you guys were talking about the mountain stuff, I'm like, ooh, skiing. My dad used to take us for ski trips, and I did the bunny hills, and then I did like a hill that was slightly more advanced, and then there was like, and I got good at those hills, and then I moved up to another hill, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get this done, I'm gonna go down this hill, this is gonna be great. My dad was going with me. Started going down the hill. The hill was very steep, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can someone just bring me down this hill? I'm stuck. I can't do this. And my dad went, well, you've already committed to going down this hill. You have two choices now, because no one's going to come in and save you from this. You have committed to this. You're doing this. You can either ski down now while you're warm, or wait until you are really, really cold and then ski down this hill. But it's going to happen either way. And so, your mic's off now.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're here. So in that aspect, you've already accepted that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And that
And
you're...
It was very like, once you say that you're going to do this, you're sticking to it, kind of a thing. Like,
right.
There's no going back now. You've already committed.
Yeah, it's like, and that, you know, when I've been on the trail and I've come to an area that is rocky and technical going down, it is scary. And you question your choices in life at that time. You're going, what am I doing? This is insane. But then when you get to the bottom of it, and your world for the just 30 seconds, 45 seconds or whatever, is altered. Because all you're worried about is making it down. And the bike's bouncing around underneath you and you're going, oh God, these rocks are huge, right? And because that's going to hurt if I land and I'm not on my bicycle. But when you make it down and you still have a rough exiting at the bottom, you still get back up and you get back on the bicycle, which means you're still willing to go for more. You're still willing to do more, even though you're tired and you're hurting. So the whole, and you don't worry about, in that time, you don't worry about how tired you are. You don't worry about how sore you are. You're worried about holding on for the ride and what you need to do to make it down. The rest doesn't matter anymore because you're already doing it. And so that in itself makes the difference, I think. And even talking now about all this, it's already making me see where my own thoughts have been flawed in this and where I've been holding myself back in some areas when I'm on the bicycle. And this is what I love about these types of conversations, when somebody comes in that has a very different outside view and in their own, from their own challenges, and where it can make a difference in how it changes immediately. And so that from there, I realized some things that I've been doing when I've been out on my bicycle, when I'm on the trail. And I had never thought about and what might have been my problem in the middle of it or during.
Well, also with some of this, isn't there an attitude change between, okay, I've committed to this and now I'm like stuck, I can't keep going, and then realizing there's no turning back, you have to do this kind of a thing.
Right. And that, and that there's always an exit door, or we try to find the exit door. It's like, well, I can bail out now. I can go back to the parking lot. It's only 100 feet away. But if you're there and somebody goes, hey, let's do another loop. Well, I'm not feeling it. And you're like, well, I'm ready to quit. But then when you start, you've already committed again. So it's like, it's too late to back out now. Just might as well go ahead. So, yeah, Miles.
There's another element here that I particularly wanted to point out, which is, in order to grow, you must do things that are uncomfortable. You don't grow from comfort, you grow from discomfort. So one of the things that your example is a really good example of, Julie, is that your dad did not let you sidestep the discomfort of your anticipation, your nervousness, whatever that was. He pushed you to go into that place of discomfort by forcing you to say, okay, nope, you are committed to this act. It was absolutely his choice. He could have picked you up, put you on his shoulders and skied down. That's always an option. But because he took that option off the table, you were forced to confront an uncomfortable circumstance, which was a lesson to learn. It is a way to grow. And I'm sure you learned several lessons from that. I don't know what they are, and you can go into those if you wish. But that notion of being uncomfortable, if we can't be okay with being uncomfortable, it's going to make it very difficult for us to grow. To grow, we have to go places where we're unfamiliar. We have to go places that are not predictable. We have to do things that we don't know. And we don't know how the outcome is going to be. Nothing is guaranteed. Sometimes it's going to end well. Sometimes it's going to end poorly. As children, we get the aid and assistance of our parents, our overseers, who can watch out for our safety in ways that we can't perceive. Once we become adults, we have to take on that responsibility ourselves and take the risks that we need to take in order to continue to grow. But we have to learn how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. We have to learn for it to be okay to be uncomfortable. Athletes have a particular difference in this. The exact same physical experiences that may cause anxiety, fear, trepidation. An athlete with those exact same experiences has the experiences of excitement, anticipation, and eagerness. They're the exact same physical mechanisms going on in the human body. They're just interpreted as different emotions or as different motivations. And so where one is at the start line of the event, one is nervous about whether they're going to win, that the athlete is excited about whether they're going to win. And yet it manifests in the exact same way physically. So there's this notion of these two notions. One is we have to be okay with being uncomfortable. If we're not okay with being uncomfortable, we don't grow. And on the other side, sometimes that discomfort can be reframed into a different perspective that allows us to leverage it as a motivator instead of a restrictor. So, Julie, does that sound accurate for what your experience with your dad was on the side of that hill?
I think so. There were multiple experiences with my dad or my parents that were like, you have committed to something and we're going to make you see it through, kind of a thing. We're not going to let you go back on something that you've committed to, kind of a thing. So.
And that's really solid because it teaches so many things. It teaches commitment, absolutely. It also teaches you that some of your dreams, some of your ambitions, some of your desires are within reach, even if you don't think they are. It teaches you to try. It teaches you to not give up when things get difficult. It's teaching multiple lessons in this case. I'm really impressed with this example.
Yeah. I through what we're talking about right now, I think this actually might have been a better way to go today. This seems to be really was a good way to go here. That thing of discomfort is that you've got a really good point there, is that, and we have to learn from that discomfort and what it teaches us, because discomfort is a matter of perspective. And that, yes, we can go, things suck right now. And that's saying that, yeah, I'm really not comfortable right now. I'm like, I don't want to be here. But on the other side of that, wouldn't embracing that and having that relationship with it also change how our attitude is with that and how we see it and how we experience it? And that once we shift that, that would make all the difference, whether we win, whether we succeed, and how we might change or be different, or what we might become once we've undergone that short period of a temporary different place. And that from there, what we learned from the experiences can help carry us from where we were into where we've gotten to. Because, you know, back to your adage and your example of mountain climbing, okay? Those guys, that is not for the faint of heart. You know, free climbing, you know, without ropes or any type of anchor points. I'm sure that in some way that guy or that person has already thought, you know, I'm not going to have anything to anchor me. I'm going to be up here with just my hands, my feet, and my chalk and my shoes and me and the elements and the exposure. And you're very vulnerable up there like that. You know, I have done climbing for when I was younger. I did it for a short time. And it is very scary. But the other side is that you really get to experience how alive you really are. And that if you weren't alive, you wouldn't be feeling all of that. Your mind wouldn't be trying to take you into another place. And that I think importantly is that acknowledging, yeah, I'm scared. Yeah. There are things that aren't going to be foreseen. And what can I do about them if they are that bad and I got no way out? At least up to that point, even if they don't happen, one has put themselves in that mindset of I am okay with whatever happens. I can accept this fact. And even if the unmentionable catastrophic event happens, and it's a total catastrophe with it, that person had the understanding.
I don't know that I agree with that. We don't know where our limits are until we pass them. You don't know
Right.
how good brakes on a car are until they give out.
True.
I don't think you anticipate being in that position. I had a free climbing event that took place when I was 21, and I was free climbing up a 60-foot cliff, and it was something that was within my skill set.
Right.
And I got halfway up, and there I was, 35 feet above the ground, 40 feet above the ground, and there were no handholds and no footholds. There was nowhere to go. I couldn't go back down. I couldn't go up. I couldn't go to the side. I couldn't. And for that moment, I had no anticipation of that before that moment happened. I was stupid. I was young and I was 20 and I was so I didn't have the anticipation that you're talking about. I wasn't afraid of anything going into that climb. I didn't acknowledge any fear. I was immortal. I was young and immortal.
Right. Right.
In the middle of that moment, however, there was a moment of, well, okay, now I'm stuck. What am I going to do? And the adrenaline pumped. And to say that it was a fear that I need to acknowledge, in that moment, I didn't need to acknowledge it. I needed to use it. I needed to find a way to get going. I didn't have time to be trying to do the inner cognitive work. I didn't have time or wisdom enough to do that. I just had to figure it out. And I was very fortunate in that I made a guess and I took a shot on a move that I am not comfortable with, that I'd say is 50% successful. And it just so happened to work out that time. I made a reach for a hold that I didn't know was there. It was there. I got lucky. And the scientist was, nobody knew I was there. I was out there with my chalk bag, my shoes, just myself. I had no one with me. I had nothing going on. I had no gear. No one was there. I didn't have a helmet on. I didn't have anything. And if I had fallen, there was a pretty good chance that I would have been seriously hurt. And that's what I'm far more worried about than when it comes to falling. I'd be far more worried about losing my ability to walk than I would actually, if I die, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But getting seriously injured was a very real thing. And I had an idea that I was going to basically cheese grater out the side of that cliff to try to slow my speed in the event that I fell.
Yeah.
But in the moment, like when I recall that moment, when I recall that instance, this notion of living in a world of fear, if I lived in a world of fear, I never would have started. If I had the fear, I never would have even taken step one on that cliff. It was a case of fearlessness that got me into the stupid position I was in. So this notion of that everything is scary and everything is fearful, I disagree with that. Most of the things we take on for enjoyment, we do them unless you're big on fear as a thrill, like in roller coasters or in haunted houses or those kinds of things, or horror movies. Some people enjoy that. I don't, but some people enjoy that. And if you're one of those that enjoys the excitement and the thrill of the fear response, because it excites you, you enjoy that physical sensation, and so you engage in things that stimulate that. I don't know that people would actively and willingly go do things they are truly afraid of, because one of the things that the human body is amazing. We don't remember pain very well, physical pain, the experience of physical pain. It's very, very difficult for us to relive physical pain accurately if we try to remember it. However, we absolutely can relive anxiety accurately if we try to relive it. We absolutely can relive the emotional difficulties that we have if we try to relive it. And this can actually stimulate and cause us to re-enter into that state. So this notion of what are we actually afraid of? What are we actually engaging with? What are we actually doing when we try to address our fears? What are we doing when we try to address our anxieties? What are we actually doing when we're addressing those things? If we do it wrong, we're just reliving and causing more anxiety and fear. If we do it properly, then we're addressing it from another context that allows us to step outside that, to analyze it, to assess it, to understand why we felt the way we did, why we behaved the way we did, and what we might, other ways that we might be able to perceive the same situation. That takes us to back to that road of, I was uncomfortable. Am I okay with being uncomfortable? If I'm not okay with being uncomfortable, then anxiety and fear, these are normal. They're absolutely normal.
Right.
And they're good biological responses. They're saying everything's not okay. And that's a good biological response for everything's not okay. That's how we stay safe. That's how we stay alive.
Yeah.
That other side just really requires us, if we're going to go back and analyze it, it really requires us to go back from a perspective of how else could I have looked at this situation without reliving it and thus re-triggering it again. That takes some nuance. That takes some practice and training.
Yeah. I would thoroughly agree with you, because anybody that is looking for a change in their life and things that have held them back in areas, whether it be in their personal or in their careers, there comes a time that whatever areas those were, maybe, for example, someone's autonomy, their self-autonomy, okay, that maybe at one point they were stifled and continually stifled. But when the time came, because of that back of that, what happened, if they hadn't looked at that and that biological response you're talking about and what it does cause, then it's going to continually stay with them. And you've made a couple of very good points here, and in that yes, physical pain, very hard to go back through again. Your body's not, the memory of it, like you're saying, is not going to be there. You're going to remember, yes, I do remember, but reliving that exact pain or discomfort is going to be, that's an impossibility. But the anxiety parts, yes. The emotional stuff, yes, you are going to relive it. And you were talking about that, and there's a interview I saw about this guy, this former soldier, active soldier, that he was one of the active deployed in the Black Hawk Down incident in Benghazi. Okay. And one thing he said, that the reason why this is my last interview on this is because it stirs up too much that, and I relive it. And I don't want to relive that experience anymore. And that's why this is my final interview about this, even though that was years back. He had said, I don't want to keep doing this to myself anymore. I don't want to keep reliving this because of how it affects other things in my life after the interview. And that, in what you were saying, totally validates what he was saying. And I think in a way, we allow ourselves to stay there too long, and why we don't do something forward. And that's why our attitude may be bad, because we haven't reconciled those other areas. I know that's kind of a general statement in there, but when we recognize, that can take a total mind change. That can reset our mind. Miles, there was a conversation we had, and it was, I think, with Julie, is I was saying that things are hard and difficult at one time. Okay. And the rephrasing of to the challenge totally changed my perspective on that. It changed my thinking on that area to where I was less resistant to doing things. I'm still resistant in some areas, but not as resistant, which made a mind change. It made a mindset change. That changed my attitude. It changed that perspective. And so what I was classifying as difficult or hard, yeah, sure, challenges can be difficult. That's what makes them a challenge. But however, how we accept that challenge, what we
It
do,
manifests a lot in my professional life as the word that people most often use is problem versus challenge.
yes,
So here's this problem. Well, a problem is something that has to be got rid of. But if you change your mindset from problem to using the word challenge instead of problem, then it changes the way that you approach the situation. It changes it from, I only see this limitation, to here is this thing to overcome that isn't stopping us, but it's definitely challenging us. It's definitely testing us. It's testing whether we can move through this, whether we can overcome it. And that's the most common implementation when I see the value of the word challenge versus the value of another word. It's when that problem versus challenge happens. It's a common thing that happens in my work. Another thing that's very common in my work is to go kind of backtrack a little bit on the uncomfortable side. Promotions. People often misunderstand promotions. Especially when it's promotion to some kind of leadership role. If you're some kind of individual contributor, if you're a team member, if you're a member on a team, you're working as part of the team. The belief on many people when they first get a leadership position is the thing that got them the job was being really good at what they used to do. So I'm a highly skilled whatever. I'm a highly skilled engineer. Therefore, because of my skill at engineering, they made me the team lead. And the problem is the skills that someone has, and that statement may be true, by the way. That may be one of the motivating pieces, but it's not the only one. The other motivating pieces are, do you think that this person, when you're actually promoting somebody into a leadership role, the perspective is, do I think that this person will be able to motivate, inspire, and take care of the other people that I'm asking them to lead? That's one of those components of when you're looking for a good leader, you're looking for someone to put into a leadership position. That's one of the considerations you're looking for. So they need to be able to be highly skilled in the job so that they can direct the team appropriately, but they also need to be able to understand how to direct the team. And a lot of people think that just continuing to be good at what they're comfortable with is enough to be a successful leader in the same role where once they were part of the team. And that's actually a significant misnomer. The job that you have as a leader of a team is very different than the skills that you used to use and master to get into that position. The skills of leading a team are different than the skills of being on a team. They're a different skill set. And if you didn't go through a formal leadership training like they do in Japan, in Japan's training system, when they decide you're going to be a team leader, they take you out of your context and they give you 6 months worth of training. This is the Toyota system. And they give you 6 months of training. And then when they bring you back, they put you on a different team to lead it. They don't let you lead the team you came from. And this is a very, very advanced way of training new leadership. That's not the way that I see common in business, in my work and in my consulting. What I see is more common is the manager of the team is either getting promoted or fired or moved, For some reason, they're no longer able to manage the same team. They need to find a replacement. And they can either replace from within, which is usually cheaper, or they can replace from without, where they need to hire somebody in to come and take on that position. If they replace from within, then they need to pick somebody they will usually pick somebody that's already on the team, that already has the respect of the team, that already has demonstrated knowledge that they know the job, so they don't have to train and onboard them on how the company works, how the job works, what the role is. They feel it's much easier and much cheaper to train that person who's already on the team to be a leader than it is to bring in a leader and have to train them on how the company works. It's debatable as to whether that's true or not, and it depends on the company, it depends on a lot of things. But when they do that, it usually takes about 2 years for that leader to learn that the skills that got them into that leadership position are not the skills they need to use in that leadership position. That the skills of leadership are different. And it takes about, on average, in my experience, it takes about 2 years for people to figure that out. So the way this relates to the discomfort side is that these people that are not recognizing that the job of leadership is different than the job they already had, they're staying where it's comfortable. They're staying in the knowledge set that's comfortable. And they have to learn they have to go through enough experiences to go, oh, you know what? My comfortable skill set doesn't apply here. I have to go and find a new skill set to engage. And in order to do that, I have to be willing to go learn something new. But that's not a native mental process. It's not something that we do automatically. It's something that we have to do either intentionally or we learn to do as a consequence of failure. And I never worry about failure because failure is an opportunity to learn. We don't learn from success. We already succeeded. We knew how to do it, and that's how we succeeded. So we know that just reaffirmed that we were correct. When we fail, then we learn that something needed to change, something needed to be different. So we actually learn deeper context and stuff from failure. So these leaders fail in leadership in some ways and then need to learn how to compensate for that. So they have to go to uncomfortable spaces to learn how to be good leaders. And that's different than being a good, whatever the job is, an engineer or whatever. It's very different than that. And so it's all related. It interweaves in a lot of different ways. But it's not just always, the world is ending and here's this catastrophe moment that we're afraid of. Sometimes it's the everyday of our everyday work. Are you someone that wants to stay where you're comfortable? Or are you someone that wants to expand? If you're someone that wants to expand, then you have to learn to be uncomfortable. You have to learn to be okay with being uncomfortable so that you can learn. And you have to learn how to take risks and be willing to fail in order to learn where what you know is incorrect.
Yeah, because
Very uncomfortable stuff, and very, very emotionally unstable, and it's like a lack of security.
yeah, because there are, and I love that we're using these analogies of people that do these sports and these activities that are highly challenging. The whole free climbing thing, that is really, you're completely vulnerable to everything around you. And you're unprotected completely. Because let's face it, if you're 200 feet up and something doesn't work, you might be able to come out and recover from it. Okay. And like you were saying, the cheese grate, that is an option to slow your descent. And yes, that's going to be excruciating. But from that, what might one learn to prevent the cheese grating next time? Because no one wants to do that twice. No one in their right mind wants to.
No one wants to do that once.
Right.
You don't come back from that one sometimes.
Yeah. So, but what it took for that person to become successful in itself is validating. That discomfort and that mindset to go, I can accept being uncomfortable. I can manage going through being uncomfortable. And you learn how to manage that being uncomfortable during the process. And if not, you rely on something that does help, provided somebody's got the tools to do it. They're at that point. But that goes back to our attitude, though. If one is ready to be a leader and they don't think so, but yet they're willing to undertake that and the necessary things to what will transform that person into a leader, then I think that person is willing to undergo that transformation in being and becoming. Because not every leader is born one. They are made. They become that leader that is needed and what they might needed to have become themselves in some way. Because it addresses where and what was you were allowing to not. And so, and this is just my perspective on this. This is just how I'm seeing it. Okay. There's different ways. People are different and they're going to see this differently. And this is one thing I like about having a good discussion like this and how attitude, perspective, and perception all play a part together. And I don't think you can have one without the other. It's that whole yin and yang aspect. And what that is, there's always a little darkness in the light stuff, in that light part of that yang, the yin yang, and there's always a little light in that dark thing, in that dark side of it. Okay. And that I believe starts also and comes from what is the relationship with ourselves? Do we know ourselves well enough? And what am I going to learn to have a better relationship with myself and to become different? Because we all change and become something different through life, through our experiences. And no one stays the same. Everyone is going to change in some way. Fundamentally, character, all that may still be the same. But people do undergo a change, irregardless. And from there, if we understand that, then our attitude will undoubtedly have to undergo a change also. If it's negative, we better change it to a positive. If it's positive, we keep it there. We work to keep it there. We do what it takes. And this is where that whole conversation that came up earlier this week about value. and that privilege. How much do I value this positive attitude? It grants me the privileges to be able to become that leader. And that is valuable, highly, because that's what makes good leaders, or at least one aspect. And it's, I mean, we could go on and on and on about this for probably another couple of hours. And I don't think any of us want to spend another couple of hours on a podcast to undergo all of that conversation. So, but on the other side, this may be revisited at some point. And I hope that opportunity does present itself, because I'm getting ready to undergo a learning process myself, and in becoming and leading. And I'm looking forward to it. So with that, Julie, what else do you have?
Did I have something else?
Did you want to add to it? Could you have something else that you wanted that might have stirred your thoughts?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So, well, I think from here, we might call this. And Miles, thank you for your time today. I know you're a busy man, and it's always appreciated when you can take the time. And you always seem to add a enlightening view on things, and that's always appreciated. It's very challenging at times.
Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and when that conversation we had about problem, when I was saying difficult or hard, I was using problem as a lot of the situation when you had said that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it was the problem that I'm having here and the problem that I'm facing. And so, no, the challenge is what definitely I don't want to keep saying that, because I've gotten away from that, and it's actually not, I don't want to jinx that. So, but man, if you'd be willing to come back on at some point, we'd love to have you again.
Just let me know.
Okay, we'll do, man. You have a good rest of your weekend, and have a good Sunday afternoon and evening. And again, thanks. Take care.
Take care.